Pick your poison, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. How far did the Twins drop in ESPN's latest power rankings? And one upset on the Vikings schedule that could come to fruition. It's all coming up next on Superior Sports Talk.
KARE 11 sports anchor Reggie Wilson covers the Twin City sports scene non-stop. Luke Inman is ready to put him on the hot seat.
That's what you gotta do to me.
Instant analysis,
Yanked. Out you go.
post-game breakdowns, and red-hot takes.
The Timberwolves need a stitch.
Reggie and Luke give you a daily dose of Minnesota sports with superior sports talk. Part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. And it starts now.
Back in the lab, Reggie and Luke back at it. Another episode, Superior Sports Talk, presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your daily 30-minute breakdown of everything Minnesota sports. That's Reggie Wilson on Twitter, at Reggie Wilson TV, and on KARE 11. Thursday, Reg, that means Minnesota State Fair is live and in action. You're going to be there. One fair food that you just have to have every year. Are you a sweet or a savory kind of guy?
You know, I'm looking forward to the great Minnesota get together. And I have a story lined up tomorrow to meet with the good folks at Sweet Martha's Cookies. And that's really the only thing that I'm looking forward to. I am a cookie guy through and through. And they said these are the best of the best. Well, depending on who you ask, because some people, you know, but that's between
it's
them
a pretty
and Jesus.
well-known statement. Yeah, it is. I don't know who's out there saying that they're not, because it's a pretty well-known statement. So you've never had Sweet Martha's Cookies, is that right?
Never.
Is that what
nope.
you're saying?
I've seen them in the store. I've seen, you know, whatever. But I'm like, no, I got to wait till the fair so I can get like the real authentic experience.
Yeah, something about them just coming hot, fresh right out the oven, pouring them in that bucket. I'm a sweets guy. Nothing says Minnesota State Fair like walking back to your car with a half-empty bucket of those Sweet Martha's cookies after you just pounded some deep-fried Oreos, maybe Twinkies, heartburn's cooking, all-time high, sugar sweats going on. You can feel the cavities in your teeth already working. Sign me up, man. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'll see you out there. Hey, remember, follow along on the Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, and on Twitter, give us a follow at Locked On MIN. Remember, we're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it, we got it. Plethora of choices over there, by the way. Ron Johnson Show, The Football Party, and plenty more. Your one-stop shop with endless Vikings talk with local experts. Do us a favor, hit the subscribe button there and drop us a 5-star review. All right. To football we go. 13 days, week 1 NFL season. Rams host the Bills Thursday night football. That means 16 days until the Vikings home opener taking on the Green Bay Packers. What a way to kick off the 2022 season. Place going to be loud, going to be rocking, going to be a hostile environment for the green and gold, can guarantee that. And Reg, forget about all the practice we've seen from this guy. We're talking about practice? What are we talking about? Practice? Forget about all the preseason. Right. He may or may not even play in this next preseason game, but 16 days from now is going to be our first look, our first taste, finally, at what Justin Jefferson will look like in this new KOC pass-happy offense. Same offense that made Cooper Kupp a Triple Crown winner, one of the best statistical seasons a wideout has ever posted in the history of the game. Yet, if you took a poll of 100 people and say, hey, you're building a team from scratch, so who would you rather have, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase? I think you'd see a pretty even close split. I mean, the national experts, 50-50 kind of coin toss between the two. So my question is, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, you're drafting a team from scratch. Who's better and why?
Ooh, when you get into the whole, like, who's better, I really don't think you can pit them against each other. I feel like it's a 1A, 1B situation, and it's really a coin flip on who you want. You know, like Chase maybe is more of a burner, you know, like he's one of those guys that can catch it on the slant and take it to the crib. But Justin Jefferson, literally his catch radius is outstanding. He's taller. He just has an amazing, uncanny ability to get open. It seems like the guy is always open, and you could just throw it in his general vicinity and he's going to come down with it. So look, if you are just like putting a gun to my head, don't do that. But if you are just, you know, really like twisting my arm and making me pick, like, who do you rather like see out there? I'm just going to go, just because of the slight edge in NFL play, I'm going to go Justin Jefferson. Look, Jamar Chase had an incredible year. You know, like it was awesome. They fueled the Bengals all the way to the Super Bowl with some of the stuff that he did. And on that play, the last play of the Bengals possession where Burrow, kind of went down early, Chase had beat Jalen Ramsey, widely considered the best corner in the league. And if Joe had a little bit more time, you may see them talking about a touchdown
Can you
going up in the Super
imagine?
Bowl and maybe the Bengals winning that Super Bowl. And so
Ugh.
it's just interesting looking at, what Jamar Chase has done, especially against some of the top teams. And like he torched the Chiefs. I was sitting in the room in Green Bay with COVID, and watching the Chiefs and the Bengals play, and Chase like single-handedly took over that game. But that being said, I think if the Vikings had like keyed more in on Justin Jefferson earlier in the season and just more often in the season, I think he has a statistically like fantastic season. He already did have a really good year, but like the dude is just a threat each and every play to make something happen. And he's just one of the most steady receivers in the game. And I think it's interesting to see how, last preseason Jamar Chase couldn't catch anything. Like he was
Remember
he
that?
was
How weird was
yeah, he was
that?
dropping everything. And then when the season started, he just turned into this all-world receiver. Well, it's only 1 year. You want to see how like teams are going to adjust to him and how he's going to, kind of evolve his game as it goes along, especially because in that Bengals offense, Zach Taylor was just like, look, Jamar, run that go route. Man on man, you just beat your man. Joe, throw it out there. That was like a lot of their offense. Like there's a little bit more nuance to Justin Jefferson's game. And I think that leads me to choose him over Jamar if you're putting them in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, you're right. Can't go wrong either way. I'll start with Chase, though. Like you said, explodes on the scene with the Bengals. The reason the Bengals, a huge reason, anyways, the Bengals went on that Super Bowl run, runs away with Rookie of the Year. And even though he only had the 23rd highest target share in the league, he was the most efficient wideout in the entire league when he did touch the ball with a 109.4 EPA. So nobody did more with his opportunities than him. He averaged 18 yards per catch, which, if you just think about it, is insane. Second only to Deebo Samuel. Top 5 in Yak with 550 yards. Just all in all, though, between efficiency and explosiveness, I think he's just an extremely safe pick, extremely high floor. Can't go wrong with him. And when you look at Cincy's offense this year, it's pretty much copy-paste. It's going to be the same exact unit. If anything, they improved their offensive line, meaning maybe more deep shots, more big chunk plays down the field for Chase. I think he'll have more targets and catch more balls than he did last year, which is saying something. When you put all that together, it just makes it really hard to bet against him. But on the other hand, Justin Jefferson, when you look at what he's done, a similar season to Chase's rookie year. I think he got robbed of that Rookie of the Year by Justin Herbert. But then he follows it up last year with an even more complete, well-rounded sophomore season. Led the league in air yards and targets. And even though Chase is the number one player in EPA, JJ was third with 89.7. So it's not like he was far behind. He's still only 23 years old, and we don't know how much better he could still get. And even though we talk a lot about how KOC wants to get him the ball in that Cooper Kupp role, he's fighting with Thielen, Osborne, Irv, Dalvin Cook in the running game. I mean, that is a lot of mouths to feed. It's more than Chase is surrounded by. So I think that 30% target share could drop this year. And even despite all that, though, I still think he puts up better numbers than Chase. Here's the bottom line. Chase has the higher floor, but I think JJ's got the higher ceiling. I'm glad you brought up that catch radius. Physically, may not have the 40 time, but who's kidding who? JJ's not slow, so stop that. But I love the big catch radius, that big window, that room for error. If you're a quarterback, I would rather have Justin Jefferson over Jamar Chase in that catch radius. So if I'm drafting a team from scratch today, I think I'd take JJ 4 out of 5 times. But you're right. Can't go wrong either way. It's 1A and 1B.
I just real quick, I'm going to ask you, who would you rather have, the Bengals offense or the Vikings offense? You got Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Now they've added Hayden Hurst, and they've improved drastically that offensive line, as opposed to the Vikings now with Cousins, Cook, Madison, JJ,
Wow,
Thielen,
Reggie.
KJ,
What a great
Irv.
question.
Like, who would you rather have? Which offense would you rather have?
I think the Vikings is more complete. I think what this whole league comes down to is the quarterback play. And if you're offering
Mhm.
me, if this is just for like one game or one season, I'm taking the Vikings. If this is for the next 10 years, I think I got to go Joe Burrow. You're getting an extra 10 years from what could be an absolute blue chip elite quarterback. And despite all the other weapons, I love JJ and Thielen and Osborne and Dalvin in that running game. I have to lean towards that young blue chip type of quarterback and Joe Burrow. That's just always going to make everybody around him a little bit better. What a great question, though. One game, what would you rather have versus one maybe next decade? I think you got to go with the Bengals and the quarterback, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Joe Burrow is that dude, man.
He's
Like
that
you could
dude.
see it. I just came from Cincinnati last year, like, and when he got injured that first year, everybody was devastated because they could see it. Like he just has that moxie, that innate
Mm-hmm.
will, like to like will a team to victory and will a team to like championship play. Like he willed that team to the Super Bowl. It was just kind of crazy just seeing it happen at time and time again. It seemed like maybe they were down, they were out. They go down by 2 scores. Don't worry about it. They got Joe Burrow. And I don't think you
Comeback
see
kid.
stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think you see things like that from Kirk Cousins. And so I think, if you had to like put some money on it, I think you probably take the Bengals in the edge just because of the quarterback.
What a great question. We might have to
That's
throw
the
that
people
one.
though.
We want to know from you. Who do you think's better between the two? Who you got, JJ or Chase? Who do you think's got the better offense, the Bengals or the Vikings? Who would you rather have? Go comment on the YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. Moving on. So the Vikes, they're inching closer to their third and final preseason game. When you try and gauge the temperature, the vibe, the outlook heading into week one, fan base experts, players, you name it, should we be more encouraged, less encouraged, or about the same from where we were last year at this time? Like when it comes to the state of the team and the direction they're heading, better vibes now or in 2021 heading into the season at this time?
Oh, I definitely think it's better vibes now. When I got here last year, people just really weren't sure what to think about the Vikings. Like, are they gonna be good? Are they gonna be bad? Like, what's like it was kind of ho hum, especially after the season that they had in 2020. People were just like I guess this team is supposed to be good, but like we're not really sure. New coordinator Clint Kubiak, not really sure what
Mm-hmm.
the offense is gonna look like. Zimmer's defense seemed to have flatlined, so you knew they were going to be competitive, but I don't think anybody expected them to lead the league in sacks. Like that was a pleasant surprise. But I think there's something to be said about new, Luke. Like you got new coach, new GM, like a new regime, new culture, new energy in the Vikings in 2022. So I think, you combine that with the overall talent, it seems like, not necessarily that they're running it back, so to speak, but they are going for it. The pieces that they had, they've added to them. They haven't started a rebuild like the Bears. And I think you are excited to see like what this team can do. They've invested in Kirk Cousins. You got all the weaponry on offense. They've bolstered the defense with, guys like Booth and Hicks and Za'Darius Smith and Lewis Seen. Like they're going for it. I think if you're looking at the Vikings at this time this year as opposed to this time last year, I think you are much more encouraged about where this team is headed and about the outlook for the upcoming season than last year, because I think the question marks are a little less. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm not sure what to expect from this offense with this new guy coming in here. Like he hasn't done this before, but at the same time, it's just like, well, what do they have to lose? And there's nothing but energy and there's nothing but, evidence to show that, some of these new coaches coming in and taking over these jobs, like they have provided that spark to their teams. And so I'm excited to see, what the Vikings roll out this year. And if I'm excited, I can only imagine how excited fans are.
I don't want to say hopes were high, but like the bar was high. Like remember, they were 2 years removed from that 10-5 season, won a huge playoff game in New Orleans, and then they would go
Mhm.
7-9 the year after. And I think people just conjured up this thing in their head that like every time Zimmer had a bad season, the team always bounced back strong and made the playoffs the next year. And I think people just wanted to start to believe that. Kirk Cousins was coming off career year 35 TDs. You had JJ coming off this Moss type rookie season. But you're right. It all came back to Clint Kubiak calling the shots for the first time as a play caller. And there was optimism because there's a lot of talent. You didn't know who the number 3 receiver was going to be. BC Johnson just went down. But with Dalvin and Christian Darrisaw was supposed to be ready for week 1, there was still a lot of optimism there, but still a lot of question marks. Defensively, Mike Zimmer's just going to do what Mike Zimmer does. He signs Patrick Peterson and Xavier Woods. And, it's just kind of like, well, Zim's going to Zim. He's going to find a way to bounce back. I think a lot of people just expected them to bounce back to that 2019 season, make the playoffs again. Those were the expectations anyways. That was the bar. Anything less was kind of failure. Obviously, that doesn't happen. They lose all those close games in the final 2 minutes. Zim's fired. End of chapter. This year feels wildly more up in the air as far as like where the bar is supposed to be, like where are we supposed to put our expectations? Because like you said, anytime you have a new regime in town, their first year is kind of like this blank canvas. You just throw a bunch of paint up there and see what looks good. And I feel like it has a bigger ceiling for success than it did under Zimmer, just in a big picture lens. But I also feel like there's such a stark contrast between the floor and the ceiling of what we might get, at least in year 1, this first year. There's experts out there picking the Vikes to be a sleeper Super Bowl contender. And then you've got ESPN's preseason power rankings we looked at yesterday, and they're polled as the 23rd best team in the league. I mean, that's a bottom 10 league. So change is definitely what was needed. No question. Change means a lot more reason for excitement because of the unknowns. And I think on paper, I think it's got all the makings of a playoff caliber team. But I think there's just a certain hesitancy and like a certain grace period anytime you start over with a new coaching staff, new GM, especially as Vikings fans who they've been burned and they're a little conditioned to just temper expectations just by default. But it is crazy. I will say this. It is crazy to look back just 1 year ago at this time and see the difference in change and just the overall vibe from last year to now. Things felt, I don't know, a little stale there at the end. And now just looking back, you realize like how stale and bad things actually got there towards the end. And even if they don't make the playoffs, I still feel like this feeling of fresh change and just hitting the reset button alone gives fans a lot more optimism and rejuvenation where things are headed. Remember, Locked On Sports Minnesota gives you endless Vikings talk with local experts and now offers you a new podcast all about the Vikes. The Minnesota Football Party brings together a panel of podcasters and writers with big opinions on the purple. Myself, Arif Hassan at The Athletic, Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and of course, Sam Ekstrom of The Ron Johnson Show. We give you an hour of Viking talks every Monday and Thursday. Find that show wherever you get your podcast by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota or watch the show anytime, any day for free on YouTube. Coming up, we're talking how far the Twins have fallen in ESPN's latest power rankings. But first, hungry? Time for a snack? Well, grab a Built Bar. Built Bar made with collagen protein, so it's easily digestible and provides tons of health benefits. Each bar is just 160 calories and 15 grams of protein, packing the perfect punch of nutrition and taste. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar, and grab yourself a Built Bar. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15. All right. Sad part of the show. To baseball we go. Quick recap last night, real quick. Twins lose 5-3 to the Astros. They drop back 4 games in the division to Cleveland, who won last night. Rocco getting desperate now, shaking up the lineup a little bit. I don't know if you saw that, trying anything he can do to shake things up with Byron Buxton out. Last night was Polanco batting leadoff, followed by Correa, Miranda, Urshela at cleanup, and Luis Arraez all the way at number 5 in the order for the first time since I personally can remember. You know things are bad when even Arraez is trying to snap out of a funk, now batting just .325 on the season. Bundy allows 2 runs in 5 innings, kept the game close. Then Fulmer comes in and boom, 3 runs right away in the 6th inning. Astros never look back. Quick thoughts on last night's game first, sure. But if things stay on this pace, just how much could the Twins regret making all those moves for this pitching help that we saw again last night? Really hasn't moved the needle for this teams in terms of wins one bit.
No regrets, man. No regrets. They had to do
like
something. Yeah, they had to do something. and they did something. They did some things that were, maybe some saw it as drastic, but they added a starting arm and they added a couple arms in the bullpen. I think they had to do that if they wanted to make a run and wanted to get into the playoffs. They had to do that, because if they would have stood pat with what they had, they would have been blowing all these games like regardless. Like it just, like the team was cratering in the pitching staff. And so they needed to do something. And so, like, I give them credit for doing something. And, you would hope that the moves that they made help. You don't, really forecast that Malley's going to land, injured, but, it happens. You would hope that some of these arms that they bring in the bullpen could do some better things. But, sometimes that's what happens. You took a risk, you took a gamble, and it just didn't pay off as much as you would like it to. I mean, there's still several games left in this season where they can turn some things around, but right now they just look cooked, man. Like, the last two nights, they've shown a little life in the ninth inning to let people know that they aren't necessarily dead. But I think you're still digging dirt on them, because they aren't winning these games. All of a sudden, in the middle of a playoff chase, you've now lost 5 in a row. 5 in a row. And now you found yourself down 4 games back of Cleveland. They are running away with this thing. And it's like they can't do anything about it. They absolutely need to win this game today. They have to, man. They got to stop the bleeding. And they absolutely need the bats to wake up. You mentioned Rocco doing a lot of the, he's playing puppeteer. He's pulling the strings however he can to try to get some more entertainment from these bats, to get a little bit more juice from this lineup. And it's not working. I don't know what's going on. Even, guys like Jose Miranda, who, is really the lone bright spot of the hitting with this team right now. Like, he even can't do enough to help them just kind of get over the hump. Luis Arraez is still batting .325. He's doing what he can, but, they need a little bit more consistency up and down that lineup. And it's puzzling to me, because even without Buxton, you still got Correa there. You still got capable hitters. Like, why they aren't hitting is beyond me. And if you're a fan, you're just highly frustrated for all that time this year that they held on to that lead at the top of the division, to be sliding like this, and to now, be closer to 500 than you have, at any point this season, other than, when the season started. Like, you're just like, what is going on? Like, what is going on? And you just hope that somehow they can stop the bleeding. But right now, it just looks really bleak.
You didn't call him barbecue chicken yet. So
Not yet.
I know when Reggie calls him barbecue chicken, there's still a chance. There's still hope.
They turn that stove on. That pan is heating up before you put the eggs in there, for the omelet. You starting to put the grease in the pan. Like, they're heating up. They're heating up, man. You're almost ready to pour those eggs in, start that omelet. Like, don't get the ham and the peppers, the onions, the cheese. Like, all of that's coming out of the refrigerator right now. Like, it's ready to go into that omelet. But if you give them
they're not
hope,
there yet. But they're not there yet. Still plenty of time to play. Hey, ESPN's latest power rankings were released. If you would have made me guess, by the way, before this, I would have said they would have dropped, 3, 4, 5 spots the way they've played, losing 5 in a row. And somehow, some way, they don't move an inch. They stay at 14, 2 behind the Guardians at 12, and 2 ahead of the White Sox at 16. Article highlights between the injuries and underperforming, the team has unraveled as of late and should be under heavy scrutiny. And then it goes on to really dig in and pick on one guy out of the whole bunch. And that's Carlos Correa. Brought in $35 million a year, expected to be really the MVP, or at least co-MVP of the team with Buxton. And while he hasn't been like bad per se, it's just not the level of play and production the Twins were hoping to get. Quick thoughts, ESPN's latest power rankings here.
Honestly, that feels generous that they're at 14, considering what they've done. Losing out to the top of the division to Cleveland. and now this 5-game losing streak and just hitting that is all over the place. Like, and not all over the place, meaning, they're putting bats to baseballs all over the place, but like all over the place, like where is the bat? Like they're running all over the place to find the bat. And so, look, we talked about Correa. The other night they asked him, like, hey, could you see yourself returning back to play for the Astros? And he's like, well, look, I could see myself playing in Minnesota for a very long time. And it's like, okay, all right, say whatever, to get the fans all fired up.
Smile
But
at the
this
camera,
point,
kiss the babies, get those votes. Yep,
exactly.
politically
Kissing
correct.
the ring,
Yep.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to say. But in reality, fans are like, oh, do we want him back? I mean, I don't know.
Right?
Russ Lewis might come back. He might be a better option. I don't know.
What else can I get for my $35 million, man? I mean, there's other options out there too. He's not the only good player in the league. Yeah.
Exactly, because he is not necessarily delivering from a standpoint that you are hoping he would. Like, if anybody else should be carrying this team, it should be him. He should be hitting at an MVP level and really helping this team surge. But right now, he's just one of the guys. And he's at $35 million. I hate counting people's money because I don't want anybody ever counting my money. Okay, look, I ain't got enough of it anyway for you to count, so you'll run out of that count fast. But I never like to count people's money. But when you look at how much of the team's salary, like, that they are paying to one player, you're like, look, man, we need a little bit more than this. Byron Buxton's fighting like heck, nagging knee injuries, hip injury, like just fighting like heck to be out there to help his team. Like, that should motivate some dudes. Like, if Buck is out here doing this and he's like 70%, then like, why can't I be out here giving this team everything I have to try to like get us to the promised land? But that's just not happening right now. And Correa should be the main guy pulling this team from the dumps, and he's just not doing it.
Twins hoping to avoid a 3-game sweep tonight. Chris Archer on the mound versus Luis Garcia, who's got a 10-2 record on the year. Just been red hot this year. Coming up, we're getting into our Gimme One segment, and Reggie's going to give me one upset special he's forecasting in the Vikings schedule. But first, remember, when you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, you're getting endless Vikings talk with local experts. Sam and Ron talk football every day on the Ron Johnson Show. Reggie Wilson gives you a sports anchor's perspective right here on Superior Sports Talk, and the Minnesota Football Party brings together the top Vikings podcasters in the city. Subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed wherever you find your podcasts, and drop us a 5-star review, or find our videos on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. All right. Time has come. One of my new favorite segments going on here called Gimme One. I'm going to throw out a Viking topic. Reggie's going to give me just his first response that comes to mind. Let's jump right into it. Here we go. Reggie, give me one Viking game they will be underdogs in that you're smelling a little upset possibly cooking and brewing. Now, don't worry. I'm not going to play this clip back. I'm not going to vault you, but just one game that they're going to be underdogs, and you think they got a good chance to go in there and maybe upset and surprise some people. Here's your options, by the way. I mean, week one, even at home, pretty much all the road games. All the road games are going to be underdogs. But week one at home, Green Bay, they're 2-point dogs, 1.5-point dogs. Week 15, the Colts may be really good this year. They could be dogs there too. And then the road games at Philly, Monday Night Football, Saints, London game, Miami, week 6, at Buffalo, week 9, of course, Packers, week 16. Any one of those jump out? What do you think?
So, look, the very toughest game on the schedule, I believe, if it's not the Packers, it's Buffalo. Many people have Buffalo, possibly going to the Super Bowl. They're talking about that week 1 matchup, Buffalo against the Rams, possibly being a Super Bowl preview. Number one, I think Patrick Mahomes has something to say about that. Tom Brady has something to say about that. But, we aren't there yet. I think, look, depending on how much of a role they can get on, this Vikings team is talented enough to beat anybody in the league, in my opinion. I believe they can go into Buffalo and get an upset. like a lot of people are kind of penciling that game as just an L, like they haven't even played the game yet. And I understand, look, Buffalo is tough, man. Like Buffalo is tough. And you're gonna get a motivated Stephon Diggs to, really stick it to his former team. You got Von Miller rushing the edge, and he's gonna be really motivated against, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. But look, I understand Josh Allen is that dude. Like he has like graduated to him category. I get it. But man, the Vikings got a lot to offer. And they got a lot of weapons everywhere. And I think if this ends up being like a shootout type situation, man, I think the Vikings can hang with those guys. And I think that they have enough to be able to sneak out with the, Greg Joseph type field goal or whatever the case may be, last team wins type situation. I think they could compete, and I think they could sneak out with the win.
We did our top 5 most anticipated games of the schedule a few weeks ago. My number 1 game, I circle it every year, at Green Bay, Week 16. You never know that's a lifetime away. You never know what these two teams are going to look like by then. Every year we go into Lambeau, we got a shot to win. And I think you're right. On paper, this team can go into anybody's stadium and go beat anybody. So I'm glad that you had the guts to mention the Buffalo game. I didn't. I'll take a step back. I'll go a little bit smaller on the scale, and I'll go Green Bay Week 16. I think could be a good upset special. But, just as long as we're on the schedule here, as we're wrapping up here real quick, these first 4 games, this first quarter of the season, not exactly a cakewalk here. I mean, there's a good chance they could easily be 2-2 or maybe even 1-3. Green Bay right away, at Philly Monday night. You get Detroit at home Week 3, and that at New Orleans and London. I'm just saying, man, if they start out slow out the gate, don't hit the panic button. This defense, we knew would take some time to kind of come together and learn their communication and everything else, grow that team chemistry. That schedule, I don't think enough people are talking about, at least right out the gate. No easy games in the NFL. We know that any given week, anybody can win. But, I was just looking at those first 3-4 games, though, man. Not exactly that great. So we'll see how it all plays out. All right, that's a wrap today. Back here tomorrow, break it down. More Twins, Vikes, plenty more. Remember to like, rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every day for another episode with your 30-minute breakdown of everything Minnesota sports, which, by the way, you can now find streaming on your Roku device. So be sure to look out for our Locked On Minnesota app there as well. We're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms. Subscribe, drop us a 5-star review, and take us everywhere on the go. That's the man, the legend. He's going to be out at State Fair all week. Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV and on KARE11. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Special thanks, producer Matt DeBritz. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.